Hello, my name is Dr. Rob Yeung. I'm a performance psychologist and a coach at a consultancy called Talent Space. And I'd like to talk to you about how you as a manager can make better hiring decisions by interviewing candidates more rigorously. Now, a lot of business school and employer research shows that actually many untrained interviewers make actually quite poor hiring decisions in terms of not always choosing the strongest candidate. And a major reason for this is because untrained interviewers often end up choosing the candidate with the best social skills during the interview as opposed to the very best candidate overall. But what research demonstrates is that social skills demonstrated during an interview do not predict people's overall performance on the job. For example, being socially gifted, having a sense of humour, making good eye contact and so on are in no way predictive of people's technical financial skills. But it's also not even a very good indicator of other people-related skills. For example, being a good team worker or being a leader. So the way to interview more effectively is to use an interview structure, which allows you then to focus more on what candidates say rather than how they come across. So the first step in creating an interview structure is to analyze the main skills that are required of any particular role. For example, you may decide that in one role that you're recruiting for, you may need someone who has very good ability at taking the initiative. Another skill you may need is something like being able to improve business processes. But perhaps for a different role, you need different skills. Perhaps in this other role, you may just need someone who has very good organizational skills, or perhaps someone who has good attention to detail. So begin by analysing perhaps the 3 to 5 most important skills associated with any particular role. Then try to figure out questions that you can ask to get candidates talking about the skills that they have demonstrated that are relevant to the role. So a question that tests people's initiative taking might be something like, tell me about a time where you took the initiative and made a major contribution to your team. Whereas a question measuring something like organizational skills might be something like, talk me through a complex project that you planned and organized. Then what I suggest is that you write down these questions in an interview structure, so you'll essentially ask more or less the same questions of all candidates for that role. Again, where untrained interviewers go wrong is that they tend to ask different questions of different candidates, often questions that they make up on the spot. But let me put it to you this way. Imagine that you had to set a written test, an exam, to test, say, candidates. It could be anything from their English vocabulary to their technical financial skills to their knowledge of marketing strategy. Would you ask each person different questions? Or would you more likely ask the same set of questions so that you could then therefore compare candidates' answers against each other? And an effective structured interview is really just an exam in verbal form. So once you have your questions to ask candidates, what you want to do during the interview then is to take detailed notes as to what each candidate is saying. Because again, where untrained interviewers go wrong is that they will rely on their memory to judge candidates. And when you're relying on memory, then you tend to be unduly swayed by the overall impression, the social skills that they had, as opposed to the skills they were talking about during the interview. So when I say detailed notes, I'm talking about perhaps 2 to 4 pages of full notes for each candidate. Then finally, once you've interviewed all of the candidates, score each candidate on each of the skills, perhaps on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 might be for exceptional performance and 1 might be for very poor performance. Then add up the points to figure out who should get the job. Now, if this sounds a little bit simplistic, then of course it is, because training interviewers generally takes 2 to 3 hours. But these are some basic principles that you can follow. So first of all, analyze the role and figure out the key skills that you need from it. Write down questions in a structure take detailed notes during the interview, then score candidates to figure out who should get the job.